I was thinking what to speak on this morning, and these 5 talks will be kind of one-off talks. I kind of loosely titled these in some kind of series called, If You Remember One Thing, Remember This. Of course, that doesn't work because there's 5, but if you remember 5 things, remember these 5 things. It's never lost on me over these 7 years, the privilege and the honor of being able to speak into your lives. And the opportunity, as I've spoken and prepared these words for the Lord to work in me first. And we're going to speak this morning on a subject which we all love. Money. Really, Mark? You got 5 talks left? You want to speak on money? Yes, I really do. Because the title's called A Question of Discipleship. And the reason I want to touch on this is because for 2 reasons. First of all, we need to be reminded that we are invited to store up treasures in heaven as we give to the work of extending his kingdom. We need to be reminded of this because the enemy wants to stop you from doing so. And secondly, because ultimately, money is actually a subject of the heart. And not just about your heart, by the way, but mine also. And the truth is, and I'm sure you know this, right, that money is never just about money, is it? You see, money and how we see it, how we spend it, how we give it, reveals something about our hearts. You know, it reveals what we trust. It reveals what we fear. It reveals what we desire. And it reveals who or what we are serving. With that, I'd like us to read Matthew 6, 19 to 24. It's going to be on the screen. If you're in the room, if you're online, hello, great to see you. It will be on your device as well. And this is in the context of the Sermon on the Mount, very famous teachings of the Lord Jesus. And we're going to read from 19 through to 24. It says this: "Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. The eye is the lamp of the body, so if your eye is healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light in you is darkness, how great is the darkness? No one can serve 2 masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and money." You know, Jesus really does put his finger right there in one line when he says this: "For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." Your treasure tells the truth about your heart, you see, even when your words or actions don't. So this morning isn't about money management. You're not going to walk away with budgeting tips. Oh, shocking. What it is, it's about heart alignment. This is like an MOT on your heart. You're welcome. Now, before we unpack these words of Jesus, let's understand what's happening. There's the Sermon on the Mount, very famous teachings, as I said. And you see, Jesus isn't in this sermon series, if you like, or this teaching period. He's not giving religious ideas here. He's been very specific, and he's laying out the culture and dynamics and the truth of his kingdom. Let's look at chapter 5, you see. It begins in an unlikely way by blessing the most unlikely people. He says, "Blessed is the poor in spirit. Blessed are those who mourn. Blessed are the meek." And then he moves on to, once he's done that, he then moves on to reshaping theirs and indeed ours understanding of right and wrong. You see, he says, "You've heard it said, but I say to you." Now, what is Jesus doing here? Is he scrapping the law? Is he saying, no, it's null and void? No. What he's doing is he takes the familiar commandments, and what he's doing is he recenters them away from legalism and the law, which is devoid of heart. Essentially, legalism is devoid of heart. And he's focusing on the heart itself. He says, not just murder, but anger. Not just adultery, but lust. Not just loving neighbors, but loving your enemies. You see what Jesus is doing here? He's saying it's about your heart. He then moves on to spiritual practices, prayer, fasting, and giving. And he says this, what is your motivation? Is it about how people see you in the streets with big words praying to God? Or is it about what you do in the secret place when no one sees? What is Jesus doing? He's talking about the heart. And then just when it feels personal enough and like, oh, ouch, really? He goes and speaks about money. Because money is in the context of our hearts. Jesus says, do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth. Why? Because decay, because they disappear, because they deceive. Earthly treasures can be eaten by moths, destroyed by rust and stolen by thieves. They are vulnerable, right? In contrast, what does Jesus say? He says, do not store up for yourself treasures on earth, but what? Lay up treasures in heaven. These treasures are secure, permanent, untouched by inflation or recession. What is Jesus doing here? Well, firstly, I would say he's giving some wise advice by encouraging us to look at life with an eternal lens. He's saying, listen, if you're focusing on this world, you've got it wrong. We're here for but a vapor. If you want to be wise, store up treasures in heaven, which means that there are treasures in heaven. That's a whole other subject. But you see, more than that, he is showing the futility and danger of placing your treasure in earthly things, listen, and the danger that your heart will find its home here. Could you say that again, Pastor? Yeah, for sure. Thank you for asking. He is showing the futility and danger of placing your treasure in earthly things and the danger that your heart will find its home here. But where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. It's not the other way around. In other words, your treasure doesn't just reflect your heart, it shapes your heart. Your treasure doesn't just reflect your heart, it shapes your heart. That's why money is so powerful. Money shapes your heart. Well, it has the danger of doing so. In our day and age, this is, I would say, more of a danger that's ever been, especially in the West. Now, I want to be sensitive as I talk about this, because you may be sitting here saying, Mark, I don't really know how I'm going to pay my rent next week, and I get that. You might be wondering how you're going to fill up your petrol tank, and I do understand. I'm making a general comment as it relates to the time we find ourselves in history in the West. Did you know that stats show that if you earn more than £25,000 a year, listen to this, you're in the top 1% of global income earners. Did you know that? It's a bit surprising, isn't it? Many people in the West fall into this category without even realizing it. Did you know that billions live on less than £4 a day? Billions. So our Western lifestyles are extraordinary. And you know when you boil not that I've ever done this, a frog in a boiling pan, I've never done it, but they don't realize as it gets hotter. And I think that if we were to take a step out of the culture and the lives that we live, and it took a 30,000-foot view, go, wow, there is abundance right there. Wow, we're driven by materialism and money more than we have ever had. And by the way, I feel it myself. Don't get me wrong. You see, it's not that your treasure proves where your heart is, it's that your treasure actually pulls your heart there. This is why I think preaching on this before I go is so important. Where you invest financially, emotionally, relationally, your heart moves to. I mean, I remember when I had money in the stock markets or I had money in Forex. My heart was definitely drawn to the Forex exchange. I was looking at it daily. That's why Jesus is so direct. Like, he doesn't beat about the bush, does he? He goes for the jugular. Now, let me be honest with you, and I've referenced this before, and every time I talk on money, I share this. I wish I'd nailed this. But the truth is, I find this as hard as anyone else. You know, many, many years ago, long time ago, I stepped down from a company that I'd founded. And for nearly 2 years, I didn't have work. 2 years. I applied for jobs. I explored opportunities. I knocked on doors. And everything stayed shut. It was confusing. It wasn't easy. It was painful. And to be honest, it was very humbling. And I'm grateful to God that during that time we had family who supported us and literally wrote us a check every month so that we didn't go without. But in that period of time that I look back at, something deeper was happening. You see, nothing's wasted with the Lord, and he works all things for good for those that love him and are called according to his purpose. Romans 8:28. And God was using that situation to expose where my real treasure had been. If I'm honest. Not because I had a lot, but because I feared not having enough. The illusion of control that I had from my money was gone. The false sense of identity I had in being a provider and achiever disappeared in an instant. And I remember there was this moment, I remember it like it was yesterday. I was in the kitchen of where we were living at the time. It was maybe 10 or 11 o'clock at night. Everyone was in bed. And I was praying and reading through Matthew 6:25-34. And it felt like medicine to my soul. And I wrote in my journal that I had at the time, God, I didn't know how much I trusted money until I didn't have it. I thought I had faith. Now I see that my treasure was where my heart was also. Even though that was one of the most difficult times, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the Lord because he loves me and my heart more than my comfort. And we never went without. God was always faithful in those times. And I share that because maybe that hits something in you. Maybe as I speak, you're like, wow, I think you might be touching on something I feel, something that I've been battling with. Now, before we all go out and empty our bank accounts, lest we think that money is evil, I want to clarify, Jesus doesn't say money is evil, does he? Money is a tool we use. And maybe at this point, you're going to be quoting me 1 Timothy 6:10, which says, for the love of money is the root of all evil. But what Jesus is doing is exposing our heart posture. This is really what it's about. He's jealous for us. He says you cannot serve, in verse 24, it said you cannot serve both God and money. He didn't say you shouldn't. He didn't say it's tricky to. He didn't say I wouldn't advise you to. He's been really explicit and being really specific and saying you are unable, you cannot, it's not possible. You think you can. Trust me, I thought I can. I need reminding frequently that I can't. Doesn't matter how strong you are, how clever you are, how careful you are, you can't serve. Why? Why? Because money demands worship and allegiance. That is the danger of money. Listen, whatever you serve and worship other than God, you will be in bondage to. It's a true principle of how God has created things that we've been created to worship. And when we worship Jesus, what do we find? Freedom. When you worship anything else other than, because the question is not, are you a worshiper or not? The question is, who are you worshiping? And so if you worship something or someone other than God, what I mean by worship is you put them at the center of your heart, then you become in bondage to that. It becomes your master. And you know this, right? You can see it play out in your lives. And the master of money speaks constantly like this: get more. You don't have enough. Just a little bit more and you'll be happy. You need to protect what you have. But the only master worth serving is the one who frees us. Amen? Let's look at the telltale signs that your heart is where money is. You ready? And they often come in the forms of lies. Lie number 1. This is a good one. But it's not good, obviously. It's a lie. It's a bad one. Money will make you happy. Now, I'll be honest, money takes away concerns and stresses. It does. Let's not, money, when you've got money that you're able to pay for things, it takes away the stress. But there's a difference between that and making you happy. I know multimillionaires that are not happy. I know people with literally nothing and they are way more happy than I am. Happiness doesn't come from what you consume. Whoa, that was really good, Mike. You should say that again. I should, shouldn't I? Happiness doesn't come from what you consume. And actually, the more money you have, the more anxious you can become by losing it. I've been there, and I know people who are there. What about number 2? Telltale sign number 2, money gives you identity. Wow, look at them next door. That is a really nice car. They must think I'm not X, Y, and Z because look at my car. Or if I had this, I could buy that. People would think I'm successful and that I am good at what I do. And I'm sharing these lies because of what I've heard in my head and what you probably have too. And I think sometimes we need to just pause. Say, what's going on in my head? Because oftentimes the thing you think are not your thoughts. Maybe you're here and this has been a biggie for you. You live with regret. You wish you had done this and done that and bought that, and you think that people think that you're a failure or not a success. It's a lie. Your identity doesn't come through money and what you have and all that stuff. What about number 3? Just a little more will be enough. John D. Rockefeller, if you were to account his money that he had then for now with inflation, he would be richer than Elon Musk, who himself has, 260 billion? The question was asked to him, how much is enough? And his answer was just $1 more. Just $1 more. Keep going, just $1 more. You will never have enough. I've been there. I've had a lot and I've had nothing. You will never have enough. Money, the master, will drive you because you're in bondage to it. There's no freedom in it. 4, this is a big one for me. Money is more secure than God. I often get more security by looking at my bank balance than I do by looking at God. I'd admit it. Man, we've got a pastor like that. Don't worry, I'm going soon. Fine. This is one of my battles, and that was the battle that I went through when I shared that story, when I had nothing. It's like all of a sudden I realized how much my faith had been put in my bank balance. But you see, we need to recognize that Jesus is our provider. Jehovah, Lord God, that's his personal name. Jehovah, what? Jireh, provider. And the root of Jireh, that Hebrew word, means he sees. He sees. Now, I'm not suggesting here that you may not struggle and that you might not have abundance. I'm not talking about abundance and ease. I'm talking about security and provision, and they're different things. But you see, what money will tell you is, I can make you safe. Just a little bit more and you'll feel safe. You'll weather the storm. The Great Depression, if you recall, I can't remember when it was. Tom will know in America. I mean, people that had put all their money in the markets were jumping off windowsills. Because what they had realized was, I got nothing. Their hope was in their money. So I share those because I'll recap them for you. Money will make you happy. Maybe that's you. Money will give you identity. Maybe that's really hit the nerve for you. Just a little more will be enough. Maybe that's what drives you. And maybe money is more secure than God. Maybe that's you. These are whole heart issues, aren't they? Who wants the good news? Jesus offers something better. He invites us to treasure something that is lasting. To store up wealth in a place where moth and rust can't reach it, and inflation can't take it, and market changes can't make it small. And when we do that, when we reorientate our eyes for an eternal perspective, something profound happens, you see. Our heart realigns to him. Because where your treasure is, there your heart is also. And what happens when our hearts align to him versus aligned to the master of money, something significant happens. Significant. We become free again. We're able to take big risks for him and bold steps and courageous steps. And money will make me happy turns into happiness is found in Jesus. And money gives me identity changes to my identity is found in Jesus. And just a little more will be enough changes to I just want more of Jesus. Do you see the difference between in bondage and in freedom? So when we're talking about money, we're talking about our hearts. We're talking about walking in the freedom that Christ Jesus has for us and not being trapped as a slave unto money. Now, as I end, how do we store up treasures in heaven? Well, there's lots of ways. Let me give you some practical ways. Number one, tithing. Now, the actual word tithe means 10%. So just to clarify. And I want to say this, giving 10% of our income to God is not about legalism, it's about love. It's not about doing it out of duty, it's about doing it out of worship. Like, all of God's commandments are there to bless us and to walk in freedom. I can see the wisdom of the Lord in this. It's like, well, think about it. If the love of money is the root of all evil, why don't we have a rhythm in our lives where we put money in its place and we put him where he's due? See the wisdom in this? Like, we talk about when we have our tithes and our offerings that this is part of our worship. It is. Before we get in, and this could be another whole talk around, but isn't that old covenant versus new covenant? Like, the tithe came before the covenant was even introduced. It was when way back Abraham had won a battle, and Melchizedek, the high priest, came, and in praise and worship and thanksgiving to God, Abraham gave a tenth. That's the first place that we see a tithe. This is before the establishment of the law. Just to clarify. It's about modeling a life where we worship him in all things. It's the same with time. Are we giving our time to him first? Are we giving our first fruits first? And tithing is the way in which God has ordained that we would extend his kingdom. In the Old Testament, you would bring the tithe into the storehouse. The storehouse was a place where you provided. This is the storehouse in our new covenant life, the church, because it is the way in which we extend his kingdom to those in need. And I want to just clarify. Oh, he's going there. Yeah, I am, yeah. It is our expectation that if you call this church your home, that you're tithing. Why? Because it's a question of discipleship. Like, if we want to be part of this church and say we're following Jesus, then, we want you to be serving. That's our expectation. We want you to be giving your time. We want you to be giving your money as God has called you to for the extension of his kingdom. Don't let cynicism come in and say, oh, here we go. He's just looking for some money for... I'll be completely frank with you. God in his wisdom has said, listen, tithe into the storehouse. But equally, God knows how to fund his church. If people weren't tithing, we wouldn't be here, would we? I mean, that's just the reality and the practicality of it. Tithing is so important. You know, we got wonderful Chuck and Taryn, our new senior pastors, joining in January. They are going to come with vision and passion, and I want us to be in a position as a church to be able to run and continue to run as we have been running. Let's not pull back in our giving because, pastor's off, we're in this bit of an interlude period. This is the moment to press in. This is the moment to press on. This is the moment to give with expectancy and say, Lord, you are doing something and I want to be part of that. I want to lay up treasures in heaven because I'm part of an eternal church that is extending his kingdom now. Offerings. These are gifts over and above your tithe. You know, those moments where you feel led to give for a charitable organization or someone in need, or there's a particular raise for something. This is offerings. These are gifts that we give over and above our tithe. And I think sometimes we can confuse the two. I get it, tithes and offerings. We often talk about those terms interchangeably, but they are different. A tithe goes into the storehouse. Our offerings are over and above that. And what about acts of righteousness? This is quiet generosity. This is helping the poor, feeding the hungry, encouraging the lonely, giving without need of recognition, putting some cash in an envelope and putting it through someone's letterbox without your name on it. These are beautiful things. And you know something, there's nothing like generosity to break a spirit of poverty. There's nothing like generosity to break a spirit of poverty. And you can never outgive God. The amount of times that I have given and God's given me way back more. That's a kingdom dynamic. That the area with which you sow, you will reap. That's how it works. So how do we store up treasures in heaven? Those are three areas. But you see the wisdom of God in all of those is it breaks the power of serving money and realigns our hearts to his. Why? Because where your treasure is, there your heart is also. Friends, I'd like you to stand as I bring this plane into what I hope is a smooth landing.